No, but up next, armed and ready. Americans forming militias saying they have met the enemy and it is us.
Americans despise fascism. Americans despise totalitarian government, and that is what is being forced down our throat.
Welcome back to CBS This Morning. I'm Harry Smith.
Good morning, everybody. They see a government gone wild, a constitution under siege, and they are taking the Second Amendment to heart. It says a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Militias, an idea out of the past, finding new currency in the firing ranges and backwoods of our country.
Citizen soldiers, where have you been?
These are the men and women of the Michigan Citizens Militia, a self-styled military force modeled after the colonial Minutemen, a group born of fear and anger. They are training for the day when they say they may be forced to fight for liberty, justice, and the American way. It's a way of life they feel is under threat from enemies within, enemies in Washington, D.C.
Our government is infringing on our liberties and our freedoms in this country. So people are banding together and networking together to defend each other. It's neighbor helping neighbor.
Before you go into the field.
This militia is a cross-section of political activists, concerned citizens, church leaders, gun owners, united by their fear that the government is dismantling the Constitution.
I see the erosion of our rights, and if we don't exercise our rights, they really are taken away from us.
We've gone to ballots for 40 years, and the people that get the ballots don't listen anymore. And I think Patrick Henry said, then shake a gun in their face.
Members consider federal gun control laws unconstitutional and say the deaths of Branch Davidians in Waco, Texas are a sign the government is out of control.
These people, they were just defending themselves, and they were murdered. And I believe that in my heart, and it is obscene that in America, under the guise of saving children, we murder children.
Militia literature and videos give history lessons, teaching a literal interpretation of the Constitution.
The Second Amendment isn't about duck hunting. The Second Amendment is about protecting ourselves from a government gone amok.
We're not going to give up our guns.
They are spreading their message across Michigan, attracting new members with their stance on gun control and a conspiracy theory in which a disarmed U.S. population falls prey to a sinister new world order.
Excuse me? I'll be glad to send you out some basic information.
For now, their battles are fought along the information superhighway, where the telephone, fax, and email are the weapons of choice. They network with similar groups around the country and teach would-be militias nationwide how to organize.
We feel that it's very important to be public, that the people know who we are, and what we stand for. And, we're not doing anything unlawful, so why should we be hiding?
If words fail, they are prepared for a fight.
There is some ominous clouds on the horizon. The things that you've been thinking about, the very thing that you've been preparing for may not be too far away.
Militia leader Norman Olson is a local pastor and owner of a gun shop. He believes there's a plot to install a totalitarian government in the U.S. and urges his troops to prepare for an imminent showdown.
We will put together the forces of liberty, the armies of restoration, and we will send a very clear, a very poignant, and a very precise message to those who govern. That if they do disservice and they hurt our Constitution anymore, they are going to have to answer to us.
The Michigan militia is treading carefully, assuming a defensive posture.
We're not unreasonable. We're not without a frame of reference in life. Listen to us. Listen to us. We don't want trouble.
But as their numbers continue to grow, the stage is set for violent confrontation.
If they come to take my weapons, they're going to have a fight on their hands. And it's going to be a bloody constraint that they will not want to pay the butcher bill for.
There are no reliable membership estimates for the Michigan Citizens Militia and no information as to how well armed they are. But they are not alone, as we'll find out when our special report continues. We'll be right back.
Sports this morning is sponsored by Nissan. It's time to expect more from a car.
It is 20 minutes before the hour. More now of our special report on the militia movement. Militia groups are actively recruiting in at least 29 states across the country, from Florida to Washington and New York to California. Do they all share the same views on gun control? Do they all see the same government conspiracy threatening their rights? Joining us this morning to provide some perspective is Chip Brule, a senior analyst at Political Research Associates. Good morning. Thank you very much for being with us. We talked about the recruitment efforts going on across the country. Do you know today how many people are involved in these militia groups on a nationwide basis?
That is hard to say. They're a very autonomous set of groups, but the larger patriot movement that they're recruiting out of has a large number of newspapers, radio talk shows. That's reaching millions of people. Out of that is being drawn this armed militant wing, which I think we have to start talking about perhaps tens of thousands.
That many?
But in the low range, yes.
And how well armed do you think they are?
Well, some of them are very well armed. Some of them, I was at a militia meeting just a week ago where there were guidebooks on how to take semi-automatic weapons and turn them into automatic weapons, books on how to make bombs. Some of these people are going in as hunters or people out of the military and are already well trained. These are very well armed people who know how to use their weapons, and the weapons they choose are very powerful.
Based on the conversations we had with militia members, it would appear as though they feel universally compromised by any laws that they feel cut their ability to own arms. Is that the primary motivating factor to join these groups?
I think actually that's what's organized these groups, but these are people who basically feel totally disenfranchised. They have no control over their lives, and they fear that someone else, like the government, is trying to control them. This is no different from other previous movements, the anti-immigrant movements of the 1800s, or a fear of a Pope conspiracy or Jewish bankers. It's always that some external force is going to control us, and that's what's going on. But gun control, coming out of the Waco confrontation and the Weaver family shootout, which were examples I think most Americans feel were government abuse. And the government's attitude was, well, write it off, we followed our procedures. That helped galvanize the movement. And there's also economic uncertainty, a rapidly changing world. Nervous people, scared, fearing control. They're going to take control themselves with guns.
These militia members are spreading the message that the U.S. government is the enemy.
That's right.
What will trigger a confrontation?
I think eventually there's going to be a situation like has happened before with the Posse Comitatus, a similar armed group, that there'll be a group of these armed people will run into some poor group of game wardens or someone trying to enforce a traffic law, and there'll be a shootout. But you could go beyond that. They might start to target other of their enemies, like abortion providers, environmental activists.
Could they target specific political figures?
Absolutely, that's very possible.
What is the likelihood of that happening?
I think the likelihood is increased if the government doesn't start talking to these people with some kind of respectful answer to some of their fears and questions.
In the closing 20 seconds we have, what would be a respectful answer to any of the questions that these folks are
There are always
asking?
going to be core organizers who you can't sway, but a lot of these people are very afraid of these conspiracies and in fact can be won away from them if somebody just talks to them. This is not necessarily just a police problem.
All right, Chip Brule, thank you very much for your insights this morning. Harry?
17. Buddy up on the company street, please fall into formation.
This is the Michigan Militia, a self-proclaimed fighting force of ordinary citizens preparing to defend themselves against the federal government.
You will be receiving live fire over your heads this morning.
They provide their own guns and bullets, from deer rifles to assault weapons. They run obstacle courses. And they hear warnings from their leaders.
If there is an incursion against the Michigan militia, we can expect it to come during the winter.
An incursion by federal troops or even foreign troops.
There's been reports of as many as 500,000 UN troops in this country. Now, I have been unable to confirm that.
The Pentagon tells NBC News it's more like 5,000 foreign troops, a few training with American forces, the rest attending schools. And yet those kinds of rumors have resulted in the rapid growth of the Michigan militia. Founded only 7 months ago, it already claims 12,000 troops, a number impossible to verify. These men, women, and boys fear their government.
I'm concerned most about them taking our guns away. I look at the GATT bill. I see the one world government coming.
And we will end up with a totalitarian, fascist government.
There is also an armed militia here in Indiana and at least 20 other states. Their enemy is the same as in Michigan, government at all levels, especially the federal government. Citizen militias are widespread because authorities say members in all these different states can now meet on the information superhighway. They communicate with faxes, phones, videos, and especially computer networks.
Yeah, this is interesting.
Computer programmer Richard Bottoms, a concerned citizen, tapped into a computer bulletin board for militias that warned about Soviet Army trucks near Gulfport, Mississippi, and urged militia troops to run the feds out of your state.
We can work, we are working, and we will.
Stan Solomon is the most high-profile member of the Indiana militia with talk shows on TV and radio and a 9mm pistol on his hip.
We don't trust you guys, and we don't trust Washington, and we don't trust the Republicans much, and the Democrats at all. And the United Nations scares the out of all of us.
The Anti-Defamation League says 22 states, including Michigan, have laws to control these private armies, but only if they plan to cause civil disorder. And NBC News has found a more ominous use of computer networks by militias, a message identifying the FBI sharpshooter who killed the wife of white supremacist Randy Weaver in Idaho 2 years ago. The message includes the FBI agent's home address.
This is dangerous stuff. It's more than harassment, it is targeting. It's targeting for the purposes of revenge.
But even their critics say most militia members are decent people who do not want to start trouble.
I do not want to see violence occur in this country, but I will not turn from it.
Civil liberties organizations say hate groups have infiltrated at least 8 civilian militias, not including Michigan's or Indiana's. Police fear a deranged person could get the wrong message from a computer screen and start killing people. Jim Cummins, NBC News, Indianapolis.
In person. We want you in. It's a better show if you're in. Should I tell you what we're about? Do this alone. Yeah. Well, my guests today are preparing to defend themselves against the United States of America. They believe that the United States government is prepared to usurp the Constitution and break down doors and confiscate guns. Am I lying to these people, Bob Fletcher and Jim Trockman?
John Trockman.
John, sorry, it says John here. You believe this?
No, not quite like that. Not the U.S. government.
Which government? The one world government?
Yes, sir.
The United Nations?
Yes, sir.
And you're in the woods now, and you're not, neither of you, you're not in the woods?
No, no, no.
Yeah, you're from Montana, the city of Noxon?
Yes, sir. The little town of Noxon.
350 people.
Maximum.
Aha. And you living in the woods?
No.
No, you're not. Is anybody in Montana?
Just their plain homes.
You're sitting next to Ray Southwell, who does, from Michigan. You gather in the woods, don't you? In Michigan?
When we train?
Yeah.
That's correct.
But you're not living there.
I don't quite understand when you say living there. I live in northern Michigan, and I have 20 acres that I live on, and there's a house there.
Right. You're with Ken Adams and Doug Hall here, as well as the ever-popular, highly regarded Jim Johnson. You're from Ohio, are you?
That's correct. Columbus, to be exact.
Yeah. You're in a militia, are you?
The Ohio Unorganized Militia, duly elected communications officer.
Yeah. What do you, incidentally, I thought this was a all-white Aryan nation, don't tread on me kind of group.
Yeah, well, the Saving the Country doesn't have an affirmative action program. All are invited.
And you're here, among other things, to say that you share their concern about the pending crisis that's coming to this country?
Oh, absolutely. Being a minority in our community, we've seen certain actions that these conspiratorial theorists have talked about actually happen in our communities.
Tell us what they are. I'm having a little trouble getting it from the civilians here.
Well,
you look like you're from IBM compared to the rest of the group up there.
So.
Yeah. We can spot you from the air, Bob. You better get yourself your fatigues here.
I'm the one that gets spotted from the air.
Yes, you are. You're serious about this. Please, I want this audience to know. Well, show them the film. This is from Michigan. Let me just, while we're showing it, you can make your case.
The basic problem is rather simple, and Americans have become concerned that here in the United States we're losing our constitutional rights. We are slowly being moved into what amounts to being a one world, and that's George Bush and Gorbachev's words, a one world, new world order. And what that amounts to basically is socialism, one world socialism, and if you don't like it, you're going to be moved off someplace where they can control you. And the problem is, in terms of the militia across the United States, this is exactly what we're addressing. It has nothing to do with racism, as I guess our compadre from Ohio would testify. It has nothing to do with a handful of crazy people running through the woods and practicing to shoot unknown, mysterious people. We already are witnessing, as we talk today, Puerto Rico, San Juan, Puerto Rico is under martial law, folks, that everybody said would never happen. That's as we speak today.
This has to do with the sweep of public housing for drugs and weapons in Puerto Rico.
That's the excuse that's being used. Now, the only point they don't make is that the tremendous tonnage of cocaine and narcotics coming into the United States is being done on C-130 military aircraft. It's been that way since all the way back in the 80s, and it was part of the Oliver North business with bringing in the drugs and the guns down to the Contras. That's where the drug problem comes
You're
from.
afraid of the suspension of what you believe is your right to bear arms. That's really at the root of this.
No,
you're
it's
afraid
not.
the feds are coming along and take your guns away.
My basic concern is what kind of a country am I going to leave my children? I am very, very concerned about that. And that's the reason that I'm in the militia, is what kind of a country am I going to leave for my children?
Yeah.
That's the same way with me, Phil. You know.
Yeah, you're the chaplain,
yeah,
are you?
Yeah.
Really?
At 63, my youngest daughter just had a little girl. Well, she's a year old now. And I was amazed that at 63, I started to really appreciate this little person, and so that's what I'm concerned
still don't know
about.
what the hell you're doing in these funny outfits here. What are you concerned about, gentlemen? What's going to happen? You're finessing me here. You think that the feds are coming, they're going to suspend the Constitution, they're going to take your guns away, and you're practicing, and when they come, you're going to pop them one.
Phil, in my community, it's already happened.
Wait a minute. What do you mean it's already happened? Oh, you mean in the inner cities?
In inner cities, it's already happened to some degree. You said public housing. It's also been public and private areas also. Shreveport, Louisiana is a great example. It's also happened in Chicago. Yeah. They killed a guy in Boston doing that.
So you're effectively, you're in the militia in order to what?
Preserve our constitutional rights.
And how will this express itself, this preservation?
This preservation, what we do in Ohio is we arm people with knowledge, is what we do.
The knowledge that your rights are eroding.
That is correct.
You got to say this, friends.
Right.
If you don't say this, this audience is going to not know what. You look like a barbershop quartet. Oh, no, you're six guys. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. What is the American people? You're holding out on me. You are not coming through to me.
Your eyes get too big. I can't get anywhere.
Well, tell them what.
Here's what the American people are concerned about.
All right, I'm ready to learn here.
Every day, the American people from all across the country call us, and they tell us two things. One, there's too much government. There's too much federal intervention into our states and into our personal lives, that our states are losing our sovereignty. Back up. Give the control back to our local elected officials. Let's uphold our sheriffs. Let's give power back to our sheriffs, who we esteem highly, who is our only elected law official in this country. Back off federal government. Give the states some power again. That's what the people are concerned about.
And by the way, Phil, in reference to that, in reference to the possibility of them being a quartet, we have turned it into a huge singing organization of governors. As of today, the governors are wrapping up a convention. The governors of the United States of America have said exactly what Mr.
that the federal government is taking too much power.
Exactly, and that the governors need it back in their own backyards.
Right.
Phil, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question.
Well, all right, I'll go ahead.
The economic situation of this country.
Yeah.
We're $4.5 trillion in debt. We're growing in debt at $1 billion a day. What will happen when all of the money collected on taxes goes to interest on the debt? If you look at Argentina and Brazil, you have a hyperinflation, an economic situation.
Yeah.
Collapse of the economy, rioting in the streets,
anarchy, and so training in the woods, what? In other words, you really think this is going to come down here?
You have to understand that
one at a time.
You have to understand that in the area that I live, it is woods. My closest neighbor is a half a mile away.
But I don't understand how higher interest rates and a big service load on the debt is going to be cured by wearing fatigues and running around the woods as a grown man, huffing and puffing. In the, what's the point?
It's real simple. If we were not dressed like this, if we were not dressed like this in training, we wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today. And we want the American people to pull together, contact their elected officials,
and tell them
what the problems are, and let's sit down and start working out the problem instead of just.
John, here's what you told us. Here's what you told us.
Ken.
No, but I mean, John, I think said this to us. It's about informing the public about what's going on in this country. You say it's a sellout. The government is selling us out. The Constitution's in peril. You believe that our government is involved in a population reduction. Come on. Our government wants to disarm the citizens, create a one-world government, then do a world reduction of the population. And what we're seeing now is foreign military equipment and chemical warfare equipment being brought into our country. Come on.
Okay.
By the tens of thousands.
If I might respond, I'm going to step on John's toes here. You got to ask yourself, and you folks that are finding some of this humorous, number one, this was photographed in Texas a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
All right, this is a Frog short-range Russian chemical biological missile. We have photographed several of these. We also have this equipment on videotape.
With a red star and a gold
Okay,
finish.
sorry about that, folks, but this is in Texas. If that doesn't bother you, then maybe we should be.
How do you know that?
Okay, excuse me, because our people
Well, let me hold it for you. I'm trying to help you
All
here.
right, this one happens to be 100 flatbeds of Russian tanks and armament that they brought into Montana. Our own people photographed this.
Come on.
Right, I'm sorry about
The Russians are coming again, you're telling me?
They're here.
Oh, they're here. I see.
While you're still handling your microphone.
Americans raising up in the militia.
Right.
There's two ways to diffuse the militia. Number one is people like you taking the information, taking our fears, and proving that we're wrong. That will diffuse the militia movement, or people like you in the mainstream news media shine a light on this information and find out it's true, then let's get the country back on true course.
Why is it so easy for us to glean support from the public? We don't even have to go after them. People are calling us.
Let me tell you why. Because I think you're stocking ammunition. I think you have semi-automatic. I think you've got automatic. I think you've got bazookas. I think you've got hardware on tripods. And you're looking out. You probably have night vision glasses. And every time you hear a tree crack in the woods, you're going to blow half the forest away. Your fears.
Where does that happen in America?
You must be talking about downtown New York City, Phil.
Paranoid, Phil.
You think
paranoid, Phil.
You believe Waco and the incident and shootout in Idaho makes your case, don't you?
Absolutely.
That the federal government is coming down. They've got all the weapons.
That's not the problem, Phil. The problem is, regardless of what
one show
anyone
at
in
a
this
time.
audience,
This young man is speaking. Can't be heard if you talk.
no matter what anyone in this audience feels or anyone in the country feels about David Koresh and his followers, whether they're innocent or guilty, they deserve due process, and they didn't receive that.
Yes.
And regardless of what you felt about the adults, the children certainly weren't guilty of anything. And that's what we're concerned about.
This is evidence of what the federal government is capable of.
Absolutely. They did it.
Yeah, and you are concerned about house-to-house sweeps for armament, aren't you?
Totally,
You think the feds are capable of that, aren't you? You think the feds are capable?
No, wait a minute. We don't think that their feds are capable of it. As I said 2 minutes ago, martial law in San Juan, Puerto Rico, folks, with full military force dragging men, women, and children from their apartments.
It is true.
With no warrants whatsoever.
It is true.
And when a young woman asked what's going on at 4 in the morning, she said, "Where are your warrants?" They smashed her door down with a sledgehammer and said to her, "This is our warning, damn it, this is our warrant. Bring your stuff out," and they went completely and dragged them out in the street.
What happened to the tenant? What happened to the tenant that a man's home is his castle? And a woman's as well.
Folks,
and incident, I'll give you a chance. Hang on just a second. I promise we'll get the charts on in just a second. It is true, you turn on the evening news, you see them. Boy, those guys are knocking them doors down, and there's, people inside in their underwear. And you're on Channel 7 Action Evening News. But it does seem. Now, I assume you're upset about this as well.
Sure, but the excuse of public housing is ridiculous, because when they're done with that, it'll be your private homes.
They'll come door to door.
Those of you that are finding humor in it, you better never take your clothes off so you're not in underwear on the next evening news.
Well, what is true, we've got, and you see this, and this is what happens when the country gets fearful, and you guys are ready for this, and you're not going to let it happen, including the man of God here, the good old chaplain.
And when they come and kick your doors in, you better damn well hope some of these guys are handy.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you better have your own semi-automatic.
Now, when they come for you guys, you're going to be ready, aren't you?
When they come for us, we'll already know we won't be there.
When they come for us, they better have.
You're going to pray. I bet you're going to pray. I bet you know how to use a gun, though.
Yeah, I do. Well, if the government comes for my gun, I'm just simply going to let them have it.
Funny joke. You're serious? You pull the trigger on a federal agent coming up to your place?
Third Amendment says I can. I will. A man's home is his castle. If I have to die proving that, so be it.
And how many folks, are there more, just a minute, are
Yeah.
there more and more people interested in the militia now?
Let me tell you, let me give you a general
give me
gist
some
of it.
numbers.
All right, let me give you a general gist of it. A year and a half ago, there was not a heck of a lot. And some of us were out there trying to let people know what was going on. Right now, across the United States, we calculate active members meeting probably in the neighborhood of 10 million. How's that, Greg?
No.
Okay,
No.
fine.
Hang on a minute.
Sure.
Just hang on a second. Boy, I tell you, you and your charts
Can
here.
I
Bob Fletcher
These
and
aren't
John
charts,
Trockman.
folks.
It's
These
all
are
right. Are
photos.
from Montana. I'll give you a chance. Yes, they do feel that the Bill of Rights is being eroded, that protections of privacy are being undermined in the name of the law. They love their local sheriff.
Let me
just wait a minute. I got to make a break here. We got to do some
All
business.
right, you're gonna let me talk
You
about
do.
my
I'm not
sheriff?
lying, am I?
All
You
right.
love the local sheriff.
Absolutely. Let me
It's
tell
the
you about my
federal
sheriff.
guys you don't like.
It's
Is that
the-
right?
Let me tell you about my sheriff.
Well,
Can I
yeah,
do
go
that?
ahead. Yeah, tell them about
I'm
your
glad you're
sheriff.
on your knees.
Go get him. Go get him.
The sheriff in my county has told me that if he comes to my house, he will show me a warrant, his officers will identify themselves, and I will be more than happy to allow them to come into my house. They treat me as a human being with respect.
What will the feds
but
do?
When we have a government that is on the verge of being completely out of control, they allow tyrants to come in with hooded masks on,
What's wrong with this
unidentified,
picture?
bust down your door. It's
Excuse
happened
me.
all over America.
In other
and we're
words-
going to all say that's okay. Our neighbor wasn't any good anyways.
In other words, the local or the federal agent, you're saying, often wears a mask.
And they don't even let your sheriff know that they're doing it.
When he shoots your kid's sister, nobody's going to know who it is because he's got a mask. And this is the one world government coming down on you. First they take your taxes. Then they take your privacy. Then they take all the power away from the local sheriff and the local police department.
Phil, if we were on stage without ID cards, or without names and masks, would that be a concern of yours?
Yeah.
You see
Why
this,
isn't it a
folks?
concern with the federal government?
Well, they don't
The
want to.
alphabet
These are
agency?
undercover narcs. They don't want to be caught. They, you know, they just. They're if they
Why
expose
is the
them.
sheriff not afraid?
Half of the undercover narcs are the ones that brought the dope in 90 days earlier and using it now as an excuse. This guy, what's wrong with this picture? When you were a kid, your mother told you go to the friendly policeman if you got lost. Can you imagine sending your kid to this yahoo over here?
Yeah, how much time we got?
Okay.
How much time we got, you figure, before the yahoos come?
No, what do you mean before? In Waco.
I'll give you a chance to answer that.
All right.
I ask you.
Waco, Texas.
All right. I
Waco,
ask you
Texas,
a
they already
3-ounce
came.
question. I get a 10-pound answer here. How much time have we got? How much time have we got?
The Grace Commission in 1984 told us that by 1996, the economic collapse, the economic
So
problems.
we're going to go down, and anarchy's going to ensue, and you're the guys that are going to be ready.
Can I say something
And you're
about
going to help
Grace
protect
Commission,
me, I
sir?
think
Can I
you're
say
saying.
something about this?
Yes, you can. You really can. I'll give you a chance.
That's law enforcement right there, okay? They're wearing hoods, they're legal, they're protecting the law.
What's wrong
We're
with
out
that?
here in the open, we identify ourselves, and they're saying we're illegal.
This is the new thing in America, as recently reported on the front page of the New York
Because of
Times.
fear.
It's called the militia. No, they say they're not racist. It's not just about guns and possession of guns, but the Second Amendment is involved here, definitely. They're proud of their Second Amendment. It's about provisions. It's about protecting your neighbor. They're neighbors. They feel like they're together, they're going to help. And by God, no constable's going to come from some faraway place and break their door down. They'll shoot them first.
No, I didn't say that.
He did.
Wait a
He
minute.
did.
Talk about faraway
I'll give you a chance
places.
to talk all you want when we come back in just a moment. You've met the good brother Doug Hall, member of the Michigan militia. Okay, so you don't sleep in the woods, you maneuver in the woods, and you're in, and you say Michigan is quite wooded, especially the northern part. Here's the Reverend speaking to the troops. I guess this is a weekend gathering for... Go get him, Reverend. Praise the Lord.
I felt that the Lord was saying, this group, because, you know, the way it's growing across the nation is phenomenal. I go to a staff meeting, can't believe what I hear is going on. But I felt like the Lord is saying, this is the army of the Lord in the United States for this moment.
Yeah, that's the army of the Lord, is it?
That's the army of the Lord.
Yeah. Well, that's the one that's the army I want to be in.
I don't want to laugh at these people, but I feel that they're all weird. But I don't think it's that bad. And as for him saying he's religious and it's an army of the Lord, it's something else. And I don't think it's that serious. I don't think it's that bad. And I would like to know if they plan on maybe taking over the government, maybe do like they did in Haiti.
You know what? The problem is
are the government.
The problem
the same
is
as you're the government.
You are the government. And the problem is who did take over Haiti, ma'am? Who took over Haiti a couple of weeks ago?
No, I'm talking about before.
No. Who took over Haiti? You mentioned it. You know who took over Haiti? An out-of-control government. They did not do anything other than go to some unknown entity called the United Nations, has nothing to do with your representative, congressional representative, and went in there and just took them over and stuck who they wanted in there, who, by the way, is now a dope drop operation in between the South America.
You keep giving us lectures about world
that's who
event.
Haiti is.
We want to know about
Phil,
this, Bob. Do you understand that? We want to know what motivates you.
Hey, I want to say something on this army.
Well, hey, now, Reverend, hey is for horses, Reverend.
Oh, well, then straw, whatever. But listen.
Go ahead, Reverend. Go ahead.
This was taken out of context. This is another one of these bites that's taken out of context. I set the condition, number one. I told these militiamen, if you are going to be the army of the Lord, you better be living right in your own homes. You better be living right in your family.
You better love all God's children, regardless of color.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The description on the Liberty Bell means nothing.
Yeah,
also, listen. Also, I said, irrespective of the guns, throw the guns away, throw the uniforms away, throw the rank away. You're the army of the Lord, because you know I've seen biblical things happen among these people.
Really?
Yes, in a fellowship.
Really?
Unity, order.
They come to the Lord, do they?
They sure do.
I want to tell you something. Here's a bulletin for you. They are not throwing their guns away, and you can quote me. But you can challenge the observation if you want. And this audience wants in when we come back in just a moment. Sir.
I just briefly like to know, what do you do for jobs? Do you have normal jobs? You work?
Yes, I do.
You're all employed.
I'm utility worker, yes.
Legally and...
Now, that was a rotten thing to say.
We're not TV commentators.
I would have hoped you would see it as an attempt by the host to clarify your rather nebulous answers. All right, your grievance is on the record, yes.
Well, you're telling us we should be afraid of our government. Why shouldn't we be afraid of you and your dictating Christian rules?
No. There's no dictation. No dictation of Christian rules. No dictation of Christian rules.
What you should be afraid of is comments like Senator Sam Nunn said on June 1st, 1994 in the New York Times, when he said, I think the American people would welcome a Russian military force for peacekeeping purposes. That's what you should be afraid of. Those are the questions you should ask your
You're
elected
afraid
officials.
of the Ruskies? You're still afraid of Russia?
Why do we need Russian peacekeeping forces in the United States?
Come
that's
on,
what I think we ought to ask.
You're an old, cold warrior. It's over.
Be.
It's over. If something bad certainly could happen to us.
Why does Sam Nunn want to bring him here? Ask him.
One of you said that you're going to make a better world for us. I don't want to live in that world that you're making.
My friend, you don't know the world. So you're You're just hearing what you hear today. You don't know us.
What world are we making?
You don't know what we believe
All
or
we are is
anything.
public servants. We train every weekend. You know what we train for? We train in first aid. We train in compass work. We train in search and rescue. We're there if in case of a natural disaster that we can come out and serve and effectively help people. If a child is lost in the woods, that we can have 500 men out there in the woods helping to find that lost child and serve that sheriff. We're public servants.
As a citizen of
unpaid,
America,
and
each
that's
one of
all
you
that
have
we
the same
are.
responsibility.
The first people at the important forest fires that broke out a couple of months ago in the Northwest, which may seem humorous to you, Phil,
I
but
didn't
it's
say,
not.
No,
All right,
not.
Nonetheless, it was the Trockman family was the first
Very
ones
good.
there.
I am
long before any other people were out for the forest fire.
Yes.
Just because of people like you are, we have to bring the Russians, because we have to keep peace here. And how we can keep peace here if we have people like you are? What do we show our children? We have to show our children how to keep peace without weapons. It's about time. What are you doing? You're just damaging the next generation, and you're damaging the life of your children.
Yes.
In the first place.
If you joined us late, I might be able to help you here.
I want to respond.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because she said that it's okay to bring Russian troops here, and they're applauding. You're applauding that troops are being brought here and equipment that's carrying deadly nerve gas here. We have documented evidence of this being brought here. We get confirmation from military sources on this subject, and you're clapping. Sometimes I wonder, because I was asked this question among the thousands of phone calls my house gets on the militia. I've been asked this question. Do you think this country is ready for it? Do you think this country deserves freedom? Okay, maybe I'm saying from this applause, I don't mean to alienate the audience, if we don't get our heads out of the sand and wake up, we're going to get whatever we deserve, people.
Yeah. Why are your children playing with guns? Where are they getting the guns, lady?
Where do the
guns come from?
What is your point? Make the point. You keep asking questions.
The point is this. This is a local sheriff. You're laughing at this? This is a local sheriff.
Yeah.
That's his vehicle. That's an armored vehicle, folks. It says sheriff on it in Washington State. In every major U.S. city and the small ones, like Bay City, Michigan, the police officers are getting hand grenade launchers, and CS gas like they used to kill the people in Waco.
Yes.
If you find humor in that, talk to me later on, because you're looking at a different radio program.
Let's review here for a second. Very recently, in our last election, we threw a lot of what we called the bums who were spending our money out of government. We hate government. We are ready for these guys. We think government is too big. We think taxes are confiscatory. We think the government is knocking down too many doors without the appropriate papers to do so. We also think there are a lot of people standing up and applauding the government when they do this. Say what you want about these guys. They respect the Bill of Rights. They don't think anybody from the federal government should be knocking anybody's door down. Certainly not without judicial approval. And so they're taking it one step further. They're not only voting to throw the guys out, they're waiting for anarchy. And when it comes, they say they're going to be ready, and you're not. And whenever they get into mainstream media, and a report is given in the paper about where they're meeting or where they're training, you draw a big crowd, don't you? Lots of folks come? Yeah, not 10 million. Come on, you pull that out of your hat. Get out of here. 10 million. I'll make you a watch if you have 10 million people in your
Good. I'll keep your address, and I'll tell you my size.
You don't.
Let me tell you.
Here's what, 150,000 people. That's max. That may be what you have.
Let me point this out. Now, we work, there's 3 or 4 of us that work on a full-time basis in just keeping together the associations. Single radio programs, for example, in Phoenix, Arizona, generates 200 phone calls of persons that want to develop their own individual groups of militia. At this point in time, we have no idea. The best estimate is anywhere from 8.5 to 10 million. Believe it or not.
Just one question before I break. It's a yes and no question. Do you stock armament?
Absolutely, we stock whatever is necessary to protect ourselves. Under the Constitution.
Right. Would you stock, and that includes
the Constitution.
That includes semi-automatic weapons and all the, the boom, 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 and the big boom.
Are you talking automatic or semi, or do you know what the difference is?
Well, what if I don't?
If you don't, then you're in trouble, because
we're going to have to understand guns.
You got to understand
do you stockpile hand grenades?
Absolutely not, and that's
no, you don't like hand grenades.
That's foolishness.
But you do have
illegal, Phil.
You do have AK-47.
That's illegal, Phil. You have to learn what's legal and illegal so that you don't get in trouble.
We have two people who are involved in watching out for human rights, monitoring the activity of what many call extreme right-wing groups. Gentlemen, maybe you're flattered by that definition.
Absolutely not. It's totally wrong.
And we'll talk with them and give them a chance to ask their own questions of these folks when we come back in just a moment. This is Waco. Here is, incidentally, who's responsible for this? And, you know, well, is this the way you want your official response to express itself here?
There you go, folks.
And what we've done here with this kind of action, which incidentally, I don't know what post-analysis has developed and whether anybody's taken any responsibility, but that action makes these men here who are part of militias feel that they're doing the right thing, not to be confused with...
The president and also Reno, our attorney general, took responsibility for it, and it should rest right on their shoulders. They need to watch that tape a few times, too.
Tom Halpern is Associate Director of the Fact-Finding Department at the Anti-Defamation League in New York City. And you're here with Dennis Hennigan, who is Director of the Legal Action Project of the Center to Prevent Handgun Violence in D.C. Is it the Brady Bill and other... the crime bill had an anti-automatic weapons provision.
That's
Do I understand that?
A ban on assault weapons.
Ban on assault weapons. You feel this is just two stories that excited interest in this kind... Why don't you just give them a chance? Right. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that the enactment of these federal gun control laws were the flashpoints for this militia movement. Clearly, these people believe that they have a right to resist by force of arms gun control laws that were enacted by a Democratic government. And that's very disturbing.
Yeah, but they would argue, I mean, probably more eloquently than I, if Koresh had been maybe readier and been able to defend, maybe he wouldn't have all those dead babies today. Well, so, you know, what's the difference between self-defense and authorized invasion of a person's home? I think that's what we're down to trying to define here.
Well, keep in mind, Phil, that Koresh's people were engaged in illegal conduct. They were illegally converting semi-automatic weapons into machine guns. Those federal officers were enforcing a gun control law that is very important to public safety.
Yes, but there's nothing redeeming about the strategy that we use to explore or to enforce the laws that were allegedly being violated by this movement. I mean, certainly, in the cold light of day, after this fact, this was a very, very bad decision on the part of the government.
Well, you have to remember, of course, there were two raids in Waco. In the first one, several federal law enforcement officers were shot and killed.
Yes, they were.
Now, that's not to excuse what happened in the fiery inferno afterwards, and that was a real
My guess
tragedy.
is, though, that sir,
I just want to say it's that kind of an event that I think the militia groups are exploiting as a means of trying to advance their agenda. I mean, it's a tragedy.
And the agenda is?
Well, the agenda is, and it's in the literature that we've seen at the ADL, to thwart gun control laws, and it claims, now it gets into these issues of privacy, but then I begin hearing all this sort of stuff about the New World Order and a one-world socialist government, and that's, I think the American people kind of know how to judge that.
I assume that if federal agents, full flak jacket and all helmets and full regalia, invaded your private space, you would have responded in the same way that Koresh's people did on the occasion of the first raid.
Can I make a correction?
There's a question out on the table. You don't like my questions? Would you respond?
No.
You would not shoot him?
No. If they come with a legal warrant, then that legal warrant should be served properly. They should come and knock on your door. We will bow to any legal warrant and have our day in court, and that's what we ask for those people.
Absolutely. No service of a warrant in the Koresh situation. There was no service. It was premeditated. And those of you that want to really find out about it, contact us at Knox in Montana, the militia and we have the tapes and documentations like the ordering of body bags before they even went in there.
Over here, please.
I live an hour from Waco, Texas, and it scares me to death that that's in my backyard. And the reason that happened is because people believed and listened to people like you. And those people believed it, and they're dead now, and their children are dead because they had no choice.
Conspiracy brewing, that lives were in danger.
Exactly,
And they were right,
exactly.
because they went in and killed them after they conspired to do it.
No, what they were doing was illegal. They've proven it.
Every single week and tell me concerning Waco that if they had a choice with hindsight, that they would have walked between the guns of the ATF and the FBI and stood between them and the compound and given their lives, if necessary, to save those children.
And these maneuvers in the woods, the regalia, the camouflage outfit, the training, is all in preparation to ensure that Waco doesn't happen to you.
To ensure,
do I speak the truth?
To ensure your freedom under the Constitution that already exists.
Bill, you're
and
right.
I don't know if you've
You're
read it
absolutely
recently.
right,
Thank you.
because
Appreciate your direct answer.
The next time, using hindsight, 2020, the next time a Waco is going to happen, I hope that I have the opportunity to stand on a line between those children and those rifles. And if they want to shoot me and take me out, that's fine, but at least I'll hold the line. And I hope there's rows of tins, and that the media can come in and expose it and stop it and take the people to justice.
You sound like you're going to be Gandhi. You're going to walk out there unarmed and stand between the police and the children.
You're right.
But yes, but we have the testimony of at least one of your members that he's going to let somebody have it if they come unauthorized, in his view, into his property.
That's right. And you can ask millions of gun owner Americans, not militia members.
Yeah.
When they come to get my guns, they'll have to take it in my cold, dead hand. And you know it's true. And that's life. They believe in the Second Amendment of the Constitution.
You cannot come and confiscate my weapons, and if you do, I'm going to defend myself with at least one of them.
You can say, in the last 18 months, you've watched gun sales and ammunition sales skyrocket. We didn't buy them all. The American public did.
Millions and
what
millions
they bought, they did not buy to hunt squirrels. I got involved in this when I first went into a gun show, and I asked the lady, why are you buying these things? They says, because we are fearful of our government.
And we'll be back in just a moment.
For a transcript of Donahue, send $3 to Journal Graphics, 1535 Grant Street, Denver, Colorado, 80203. To order a video cassette for only $24.95, just call 1-800-FOR-VIDEO.
Yes. That much time, darling.
What I think you're doing is preying on people's fears and creating the same tensions that created when we had Hitler's Nazism. I have read the Constitution. I've read all of it. What you're trying to do is twist it to your own means.
Ma'am, you do not know what we're trying. You
yes,
don't know us, ma'am.
Well, you don't know me,
us.
but I do know that we do need laws against guns.
I detest any more than fascism and Hitler's Nazi. You don't know us.
I talked to Dick Lobenthal from the Detroit area ADL, and he told me that every fascist government starts out with a democracy with a constitution suspended temporarily. Hitler's Germany, folks.
Over here, please.
I'm not from Montana, but I've never had a FBI agent or a sheriff ever knock on my door for every reason, for any reason. And one other thing is...
There's some inner city people that want you to know that this is happening.
Okay.
All right. So, if you don't understand, at least we have a responsibility as citizens to understand that there is enough evidence to go around that ought to alarm anybody interested in the Bill of Rights. If you don't care about the Bill of Rights, then really what the hell is the point of this whole American experiment? That's the whole...
But these people who, I think it's called paranoia, and the best cure for that would be a nice little shot of Prozac that could take care of their for a while. That's all they need. A few cc's and they'd be fine. They would be paranoid.
Would you say to the little children at Waco, hey, honey, don't be so paranoid?
17
Uncle Sam isn't going to do this.
I don't think they had a right to combine the First and Second Amendment. I don't think if you have freedom of religion, freedom of the bear arms has the same thing to do with each other. You should be able to have your religion without having your arms.
The point was that the Constitution of the United States basically was created on a God-fearing group of people. That's the extent of that. We're not espousing special religion here.
How many of you really know what the Second Amendment of the Constitution says? It also, now either for the Constitution or not, as Phil said, but it also says that we have the right to form militias, that the people, you do also, but we have the right to form militias as well as the right to keep and bear arms,
Phil,
all in one sentence.
Phil, that is a total distortion of the Second Amendment to the Constitution. This guy doesn't have the foggiest idea what that amendment means.
Yeah, there's more to it. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And also the establishment of a militia is declared.
Notice it says a well-regulated militia necessary to the security of the state. The militia is a military force of state government, not a private army.
No, the Second Amendment is in the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights for guarantees to the people, not to the government.
Please let me say that we have on the stage represented 3 states in which there is militia activity. Considerable amount of it. The New York Times has reported on your states and others. Florida has considerable militia activity. I think the Mr. Fletcher, he of the many photographs, and now here he comes with a report, would want to say that what, half our states now have militia activity?
No. Probably.
Probably what?
Probably.
Phil, I'll give you a fact. I have 48 states that have militia activity, 25% of the counties. I can document every one of them.
And we'll be back in just a moment.
If you'd like to enter our I Have the Best Husband in the Universe contest, give Donahue a call at 1-800-205-7445. That's 1-800-205-7445.
I just wanted to say that there are other ways besides arms to stop this. I mean, you don't have to go to arms all the time.
The ballot box is the way to do it. And all we want to do is share the problems with you.
I've sat here with an open mind and listened to you guys, and so far you haven't told me anything. You're like afraid of Russians and people in hoods. I don't see that. You haven't said anything to me.
We'll give you a few more years of life, you'll see much more, son.
Yes. You have way too much time on your hands. You need a hobby. You know that?
I'm sure I could get a lot of people to join my organization, too, if I could give everyone a gun, and especially gentlemen, I know they like this, to run around in the woods and shoot them and play war games.
Nobody gives anybody anything.
There are many ladies in our organization.
If I might point out, those of you that don't quite get a handle on it and don't quite understand it, contact us there in Knoxon, Montana, and we'll give you things such as examples of Bill Clinton's emergency rules that he just laid down June the 3rd. This is the entire document for martial law. You can read it yourself.
Thank you.
So where are all the women on the stage?
Yeah. You have women? Are women part of the militia?
Absolutely.
They are.
There's an 87-year-old lady.
What do the women do? Do they identify?
They're worried about what's happening. So.
There's a young lady in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Yeah.
I think the reasons you're giving for, there's nothing triggering this kind of response to all this military action. There's nothing. You talk about Waco. There's nothing.
You didn't care about Waco.
It's nothing. Not that I didn't care about.
Everybody I talk to in the press, everybody I talk to in the press says Waco. When I mention other cities, it seems to go over everybody's head.
Your sheriff condemned what happened in Waco, lady.
Yeah.
Your sheriff in your county condemned what the feds did in Waco, and we've got it on tape to prove it.
Excuse me, you...
They said it was wrong.
This young woman wanted to say.
17 children died in Waco. You hold no responsibility to David Koresh for that. He was a pedophile. He was a rapist. He believed he was Jesus Christ. There's only one Jesus Christ, and I've never met him, and he wasn't David Koresh.
They could have come and got him any time. He went jogging. He went to coffee shops in town. It had nothing to do with him.
You know, Phil,
No, he wasn't even there.
Yes.
You know, Phil,
Mr. Hennigan would like your attention for just a moment. Mr. Hennigan is with the Center to Prevent Handgun Violence. Sir.
You know, these folks are so concerned about those kids killed in Waco. What about the 15 children that die every day in this country because of gunfire? That is a national tragedy.
I think
most of the American people recognize that handgun legislation and other gun control legislation is a response to the crime problem. I mean, the gentleman to my right said these people at the gun shows, they said they were fearful of their government. They said not crime. He said, well, that too. I think that's really the issue here. It doesn't have anything to do with the government wanting to first take away your guns so that they can engage in some sort of nefarious plot to completely control your lives.
You know what?
That's really what this is all about.
A lot of Jews thought that back in the 30s and 40s.
Look,
they did. The Jews that we have, along with everybody else in our militia, are some of the best armed and best educated people because their parents have told them what has happened in the 30s and 40s, and they're going down the same path.
I know my history. As a Jew, I know my history, and I know about Hitler.
And
I don't need you to tell me about Hitler.
You know what? Hold on a minute, Phil.
Well, I got another point. I got another point. It's the sort of fear that they can induce in other citizens that I think represents the real danger. In Aurora, Illinois, there was an ordinance passed concerning gun legislation. Right. Mr. Trachman's group sent out thousands of faxes, and he said this on the record, saying that the police was going to go conduct door-to-door searches, hand-to-hand searches, and they were going to come knocking on the doors, and they were going to come in and take the guns. Can you imagine if someone got this message and took it to heart and hunkered down and was waiting, and the police came down, knock on his door, and say, hey, buddy, you know, your headlights are on, your battery's going to run down. There could have been a real tragedy there.
Yes, but let's understand the strategy here. I admire your cleverness. I truly do. First of all, I'm going to take you at your word. You say you acknowledge you stockpile ammunition. We have at least one or two of you that have said you're not going to fire. You're not going to fire on people who come to search your house. You are going to disallow and stand in front of if they would open up a gunfire on children. You're saying you're organized so you can find lost children in the woods and prevent forest fires.
We said nothing about
so you see, we have here,
making stuff up.
And incidentally, they're not racist. Here you go. Yeah. I mean, this young man comes from Ohio.
If there was a lost child, I'd welcome anybody's help to find a lost child.
But they know the woods, they're saying.
Yeah, but they're talking about in their literature about a socialist one-world government. What does that have to do with search and rescue?
And we'll be back in just a moment.
We decided to go to school dressed in women's clothing.
A gay teen battles harassment, but did he go too far? Next, Donahue.
Yes.
Yes, I was just wondering, when you guys get together, what exactly do you do?
First off, on a full-time basis, those of us that can do it, we are just sending out generic information on the infringement on constitutional rights as an information center. The other small groups, as they develop, if they feel they have to create a small nucleus to protect their constitution in their areas, that's what they're doing. And it's that simple, and there are no crazies sitting up here on the stage.
May I ask you to join me thanking all these guests for
Services
raising
provided and promotional fees paid by the following.
Find your two targets.
They are fed up with the federal government and want to live in a world apart. He is their leader.
Oh, I love you, brother. Thanks for what you're doing for the country.
Bo Greitz, a war hero with a new cause and a new enemy.
I think the federal government has become a predator.
When Day One continues after this, from...
You may not have heard about this, but thousands of Americans, all different kinds of people, have taken refuge from the rest of us. They're former hippies, survivalists, neo-Nazis, you name it. With one thing in common, they are building separate worlds for themselves in the American Northwest. This now is the story of a man who is building his own promised land there, and he's no ordinary man. He was the model for the real-life Rambo, retired U.S. Army Colonel Bo Greitz, a highly decorated war hero who has come to believe that the U.S. government is the enemy. He gave John McKenzie a look at his new world.
Bo Greitz on Washington bureaucrats.
What is in the federal system right now, I think, is human sewage, and I think it is blocking good government.
Bo Greitz on the Federal Reserve.
It is illegal, and it will suck us until this nation dies.
Bo Greitz on gun control.
My definition of gun control, hitting the target with every shot.
On a remote mountaintop in northern Idaho, this outspoken American war hero is in the midst of a strategic retreat, a self-imposed exile. Army Colonel James Bo Greitz is now retired. At 55, he is no longer leading soldiers, but families. People like him intent on forming their own community. People who feel threatened by their own government.
I know something about the government. They do a threat analysis. We're going to be more trouble than we're ever going to be worth. We have an excellent position right here. There's only one road up here, and I get a chance to watch you coming up that road most of the way.
How did a man with 62 medals and citations, one of the most decorated Green Berets in history, turn against the very government he served for most of his life? To get the answer, you'll have to go back 30 years to Vietnam, where Greitz was an officer in the Special Forces. He commanded a so-called suicide squad of Cambodian mercenaries, setting ambushes deep inside enemy territory, waging his own guerrilla war.
You don't like to follow rules?
Well, my whole life has been rewarded for not following rules.
That kind of independence was what the government wanted, Greitz says, when 4 years after the war ended, he was given a new mission, to find out whether American POWs were still being held in Southeast Asia. For 7 years, he searched. He never found any prisoners of war, but he says what he did find there changed him forever. He claims that the CIA was part of the international drug trade, dealing narcotics to finance secret operations, and that when he tried to tell officials in Washington, he was left feeling bitter and betrayed.
I was told to erase and forget all that I had found about government drug involvement because it would, quote, hurt the government. And I said, whose government? Not the government my dad died for. Not the government I've worn the uniform of all of these years.
You make the federal government sound as though it's some evil conspiracy.
The federal government, I believe, has become our worst enemy. It is supposed to be our great protector. I think the federal government has become a predator.
I'm not sure I understand. What do you think is happening to the country?
I believe that the country is being merged as part of a world system. If you no longer are an American citizen, where the Constitution guarantees your rights, where God gave them to you, and you become, let's say, a citizen of the New World Order, where we will kneel before people who make rules that aren't Americans.
I pledge allegiance to the flag.
Most weekends, Greitz can be found in hotels around the West.
For which it stands.
One nation under God, indivisible.
Today, his self-appointed mission is to sound the alarm.
The UN plan is for a one-world government by 1995.
These meetings are part of a program he calls SPIKE, Specially Prepared Individuals for Key Events.
The president signed an executive order. It gives the operational control of United States Armed Forces to who? The little golly boy from Cairo, Egypt, Boutros Boutros.
Greitz is also angry about events here at home. He believes the siege at Waco was a crime, that David Koresh and his followers were victims. Waco is proof, he says, that Americans are no longer safe from their own government.
The government, like a bunch of stormtroopers, came in there, shot first, wearing Nazi bucket helmets, black uniforms, carrying machine guns.
If America can still be saved, Greitz warns, it is only by adhering to Christian scripture and the Constitution.
If we will repent, what will God do? He will heal our land.
It is a talk he has given 20 times in the last 6 months.
Bo, I love you, brother. Thanks for what you're doing for the country.
I'm doing what I'm called to do. I want you to do what you think is right.
What did you find so appealing about Bo Greitz?
His honesty, his viewpoints about what's going on in our country right now.
Ben and Kathy Dacey of Los Angeles heard Greitz speak for the first time 2 years ago.
Bo Greitz sees the government as the enemy. Is that the way you see it?
They are the enemy.
The enemy?
They are the enemy. I think they're working for the destruction of our country as we know it. I think they intend to do away with the Constitution, with the Bill of Rights. I think they have a plan for the global plantation. It's no big secret.
While Greitz's views on government may be no secret, what about the books and pamphlets that are on display at the entrance to his meetings? The material belongs to and is sold by this man, Richard Flowers, a supporter who follows Greitz from city to city. meeting to meeting. When we tried to get a closer look at some of the books, they were pulled off the table.
Why do you allow hate literature to be sold at your Spike meetings?
Define it.
Well, I'll show it to you. At your Spike meetings, the Jews and their lies, who brought the slaves to America?
Who did bring the slaves to America?
A frame-up victim of the Nazi hunters? These are sold at your Spike meetings.
Well, they are sold probably by a man named Richard Flowers. Richard Flowers can bring whatever he will. That is his First Amendment right.
What have you done to distance yourself from this literature?
Well, first of all, I don't know that there's anything that's wrong behind those covers. I haven't read those.
If you told him not to sell this literature there, he wouldn't sell it.
I don't know that at all.
Have you tried to talk to him about it?
I have not talked to him about it. But if I were to talk to him, I think he might be a little insulted. What would you say, for example? Richard?
He'd be insulted. The Jews and their lies.
What do you think a Catholic would feel? What do you think a Mason would feel when they go up and see a book on Masonry? You know, first of all, the first thing you do is a Jew that would approach that might want to read it and see what it says.
What it says is, be on your guard against the Jews. They are the real liars and bloodhounds. From childhood, they have been brought up with poison and hatred. Greit says he doesn't care about other people's race or religion. He points out that 2 of his own children are of mixed race. But his critics point to an incident 2 years ago in Idaho as a sign of the mixed signals Greit sends. Federal agents surrounded the home of an alleged white supremacist named Randy Weaver, who was wanted for violating federal gun laws and later acquitted. Local neo-Nazis made a show of support. Greit saw the siege as another case of government harassment and volunteered to mediate. He brought the standoff to a peaceful end. Then, before leaving, he gestured to the skinheads.
A few years back in Idaho, you gave...
Be careful.
What looked like a Nazi salute.
Well, see, you would have been full of to have said that now as you would have then. You weren't there and you don't understand why.
Well, I have a picture right here.
Sure.
This is a picture.
Great. Let's look at the picture. Now, what do you see there?
You want to tell me what you're doing? You've called it a special salute.
Well, let me tell you something. I had been especially asked by Weaver to thank the skinheads that had written the letter that I think helped to get Weaver out alive. And I raised my hand just like this, and I said, hey, and if it was a moving picture, you would have seen where I was waving at them, and I said, hey, guys, I want to thank you.
But there is a moving picture, and this is what it shows.
By the way, he told me to give you guys a salute. He said you knew what that is. Thank you. You tell me now that I gave a Nazi salute, and I'll treat you like Geraldo Rivera was never treated. You want to test me?
Are you threatening me?
Who did? You wanted a threat? You tell me that I gave a Nazi salute, and I won't threaten you, my friend. I'll keep a promise.
Usually, there is an outlet for Greit's aggression, and this is it.
All right.
The other part of the Spike program, a training camp that teaches supporters survival skills and paramilitary tactics.
My promise is they'll be as ready as Delta Force.
Classes include SWAT methods, how to efficiently engage multiple targets.
Take advantage of cover. Find your 2 targets.
And how to shoot guns equipped with laser scopes.
You put the dot right where you want the bullet to go.
So far, more than 2,000 people have gone through this training in 10 cities.
But let's say the government decides to take the door off of your hinges. It's the wrong address, of course.
Some come away with not just new skills, but new ideas.
Our Constitution is hanging by a thread, and it has for a good long time.
Barbara and Dan Fuller are grandparents and graduates of Spike training.
I really admire Bo because he calls a spade a spade. He tells it like it is. And a lot of people have their head in the sand. And
what do you mean?
One world government under the United Nations, no more United States, if people don't start waking up.
Do you feel threatened by the federal government?
You bet.
Hey, guys, how you doing?
The Fullers are one of 90 Spike families that have bought land in the new community Greitz is creating in northern Idaho. Each family spending at least $15,000 for a 5-acre lot. Greitz calls this place almost heaven.
Why do you need your own community?
We want to continue to live as Americans, which means if you want to homeschool your children, you got a place to do it in safety. If you want to use herbs and naturopathic approach to health maintenance rather than Hillary's health club, you can do it. And I believe that you're going to need an ark in a time of Noah.
Wright says any American is welcome here. The only requirement, each family in the community must sign a pledge, or as Greitz calls it, a covenant.
Anyone who moves in here has to agree to be willing to actively defend the rights of others under the Constitution.
Defend them from what?
Well, from anything, whatever there may be.
I'm worried it'll become another Waco, Texas.
Rosemary Tebow lives nearby, one of 1,200 residents in the logging town of Kamei, nestled in the valley below.
He quotes the Bible by Bo, the scriptures by Bo, the gospel by Bo. If he's not starting a cult, what's all this Bible stuff? What is all this? We want to be a covenant. He calls it a covenant community. That's what they called Waco, a covenant community.
He says he just wants to live on that mountaintop peacefully. No one butting into his business.
I'm sorry, I don't believe him.
By August, Wright's, trying to reassure local residents, called the first of 2 town meetings in Kamei.
I can see there's a lot of concern about some kind of a compound, a military compound with guards and flags and gates and tanks and guns and minefields. I don't think you're going to find it.
Can we expect frequent gunfire to disturb the tranquility of our peaceful community?
The only gunfire that you can expect is any that comes our way.
Some people might hear you and say, the guy's paranoid.
Well, some people certainly could think that. The good news about being an American is that you are free to have thoughts and expressions as you will, so long as they do not harm some other person or their property.
When we asked Idaho officials whether they were concerned by Greitz's arrival here, all they would say on the record is that they expect him to obey the law. The state is clearly not looking for a confrontation. Not with this man.
You're quoted as saying it would take 20,000 troops to get you off that hilltop.
No, that is absolute hogwash. I'm saying if, for whatever reason, the government ever decided, listen, those people are abusing children, those people won't become world citizens, let's go get them. It would probably require 20,000 militarized police or military to try and affect what they did at Waco or at Weavers.
So you're prepared for a conflict with the federal government?
Let's make it clear in the smallest words that I can possibly conceive now. I love the U.S. I will go to Idaho and live peacefully. But if there is trouble, as you said, no matter what face it wears, yes, we are prepared to defend our homes, our families, our children, our lives, our property, yes.
And there's more of Day One ahead.